This is Nuance, and I'm Mike Scala, joined as always by Jay Carter, also known as Timid. He's the chair of BLM Tokyo and the hip hop MC extraordinaire. What's going on, Jay?
What's going on, Mike?
Busy as always, into vacation. I think once I finish this work I'm working on, I'm gonna be out for a little bit just to clear my head.
Yeah. Another overnight drive to Florida.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say overnight drive on these lawsuits, but yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll drive up north. I haven't been to Canada yet.
Yeah, that was one of your vacation things, was always hitting the road and just heading straight to Florida or DC.
Yeah, oh yeah. I love being on the road. Well, speaking of driving, but I don't know if driving is the appropriate bowling analogy. It's more for golf, right?
Yeah.
But we are joined by professional bowler, or soon to be professional bowler, Jeffrey Williams-Maisonet, who is a staple in the Rockaway community. What's going on, Jeffrey?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for having me, Jay and Mike. Yes, again, I'm Jeffrey Williams-Maisonet. I am currently on tour right now. We're trying to make PBA tour. When I say I'm on tour, I'm traveling a lot, bowling. So right now I'm busy with that. I'm got a summer tour final next week. I decided to drop in. I got some time this week. I was like, let's drop in on the show. Let's talk about some good stuff. I miss this stuff. It's been a while since I've been out there,
Yeah. Remember Rockaway prime time too? That used to be a big thing.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll say that they may be making a comeback really soon. But we'll touch on that another time.
Okay.
Offline.
That sounds good. So what's going on this week, Jay?
Well, I'm a little sore, but other than that, just reading some things. Inc. magazine had an article about 3 daily habits that will change your life. You know how they do the headlines, like it's gonna change your life. It's gonna be the best thing ever. But they had a couple of things on here that I thought might be kind of interesting to take a look at, to see if anyone's doing these types of things. So the first thing that they had was daily study. Basically that Steve Jobs said that creativity basically is just connecting things. So it's like the more you study, the more stuff that you have to work with, the more creative you can be. So anyone
daily study? So studying anything?
Yeah, just to read or books or watch videos or listen to talks or anything like that you can have a well from, that you can draw from when doing your work or creating or anything that you're trying to do. You reading or studying anything these days recently? Mike, Jeffrey?
I mean, I'm studying legal documents constantly. Cases. I'm always researching cases to use in my papers. That's kind of all lawed out at this point, but yeah, it's constant.
Yeah.
I literally been studying nothing but real estate and economics like crazy to pass them off, whether that's either doing YouTube, either reading about them, coming across all different articles. I would say I pack myself with so much information daily. I don't know how to keep up with all this stuff.
That's what's up. I think all of that qualifies. It keeps filling up your well of knowledge to be able to move forth with different things. So yeah, that's what's up. I think that counts. And I just finished reading the Tao Te Ching. So trying to keep up on my reading as well. So. Number 2, they had reflection and journaling. Now, this is something that I never have done. I don't do. Like, I don't know many people that journal, or I guess people do. And this is something I've always told students to do when they were trying to learn a language, was to journal like your day, to practice in that target language. So just even write, short 3-4 sentences about what you did that day, even if they were very basic. It's just something to keep you active in using the language. But in general, you guys journal?
I think journaling is just going online now and ranting on Facebook or on Twitter.
Yeah, I think that's a great practice. I don't know why I don't do it. I think it's great. I mean, they always told us in school, you write something 5 times each, your brain is going to always remember it. So it's probably good to always, jot down those thoughts. that you have, because sometimes we always say we got our whole week planned and then we end up doing something totally opposite.
Yeah, I do jot down bars for rap lyrics. I jot down jokes, even though I haven't done any comedy. I come up with jokes sometimes. I have a note for different jokes I've come up with and things like that. I don't really have any journal of just random thoughts, but I do keep notes on different areas that I'm working on. Even when it comes to a case, I'll write down some ideas, an outline, or just something to kind of keep my mind sharp and focused on the case, because I might switch from case to case to case. When I come back to another one, I want to make sure I remember what I was thinking of before.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the third one was a daily walk. So to get out of your office, to get out of your space, just to keep moving. And it's also helpful for creativity, because what you see in your walk and everything could stimulate thoughts and creative ideas and whatnot. It's also taking a break physically.
Yeah. I think that's very important. And I mentioned before, when I was studying for the bar, I read that it was important to take frequent breaks, because the idea is we remember everything that happens in the beginning and the end, but not so much in the middle. Like think about a movie, a show, a song, anything. Like it's the primacy and the recency effect. So if you take a lot of breaks, you have more beginnings and ends and less middle. That's kind of the theory behind it. It keeps you focused, and I think it does work. Just to get a refresher, right? Just you take a break, and it's not just because you're tired of working. It's because it keeps you more focused on the work, and like you said, it could even spark an idea.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely would take long walks, especially before my midterms and finals when I was in college. Taking those walks kind of also, I feel like it's therapeutic. It kind of gives you that relaxing feel before you go into a test, because I think you would want to be relaxed and have a clear mind before going into a test, because your mind will just wander off into different spaces.
Yeah, I mean, they even say, like, before the test, like, you shouldn't really cram right up to the test. You got to give your brain a little bit of time to relax and soak that stuff in. So I thought they were interesting tips here. So I guess even reading articles like this is kind of like tip number one, daily study, just to look at different things. So
yeah, for sure. And I'll say for me personally, the one I got to do more of is walking. I think I got to get out more, see the sun more, exercise more, all that kind of stuff. These days, I feel like I'm not doing enough of that, because I'm just stuck inside working on this case, trying to meet these deadlines,
And you're a night owl anyway, so you definitely need some more sun.
It's true. I do work best with less distractions. And I think that at night, people aren't calling you. It's I don't know, it's just a calmer atmosphere, and I can focus more and get more done.
Yeah, it's quiet too. Like there's just not a lot of things stirring. And just, yeah. No, I get that completely.
Yeah, so do I.
But no, you're right. And you know what? On that note, I did mention on Facebook, I hired 2 attorneys to come in to work with the practice recently, and I've had a hard time doing that, because I'm used to working on my own and being in solo practice and being responsible for everything. And I feel like I built up this reputation and my name means something. When you start giving work to other people, I feel a little uneasy about that, because you don't know if they're going to do as thorough a job as you will, and that could have an effect on your name. I think that's something that a lot of people deal with when they're trying to grow their own business. It starts off small, but then it gets to a certain point where if you want to grow it, you can't do everything yourself anymore. You have to give tasks to other people, and then you have to learn how to be a good manager. And it's a whole new set of skill sets now that you need to use.
Absolutely. But there's some of it you can still, since you're going to be overviewing it, you can kind of check that quality or whatnot as well. Like you said, that's kind of part of management that you kind of introduce into the mix. So,
right.
I think it'll be fine.
I think so. You know what? When I was doing it, I was nervous about the idea, because I'm like, well, let me sit down and calculate this. Like if I spend every waking hour in the month of August working on all these cases myself, if I'm making the best business decision for me, then hiring other people is costing the business money. And I'm like, but then you drive yourself crazy. And then the work at a certain point can suffer as well, because you're burnt out, like kind of relating to what we were just talking about. You're not taking care of yourself. You can't take any breaks, right? So that's something to consider as well. And in the long run, it's a good thing, because it allows you to be in a position to take on more clients and grow and do things that you could never do just as one person.
Right. Yeah, and you need that break mentally. You gotta have that, you know. So that's what's up.
Have you had any kind of experience with that, Jay, when it comes to not even just in business or just in terms of having to give responsibilities to others and feeling nervous, like you feel like your work might be diluted somehow?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes I feel like, I'm kind of like a self person as well. Like I try to do everything on my own. I try to always do things and figure things out on my own. And I think it comes down to also trusting. I think also you got to have trust in other people that they will get the job done. I would say through my regular daily work that I do for a living, aside from my bowling, I mean, there's times where my schedule's all over the place. I forget that I have to be at the bowling alley, or I forget that, hey, I got one project due at work. And then I know I have coworkers that I can lean on and be like, hey, I'm going to be out the office early. Can you pick up this work for me here? I really got to get this done by the end of the day. And it's kind of like sometimes I end up staying there that extra half hour anyway, because it's just like in me to like, it's your responsibility. It's your project. Your name's on it. You need to take care of this. But I know like my coworkers behind me, they can handle it. I know they can.
Yeah, and I'm kind of used to it in other contexts, like in politics. You have a whole campaign staff. You can't run a campaign by yourself. You have to have people working with you. And so I've got that kind of experience as well. I've got a political team, but I wasn't used to it in the context of my law practice because it's always been my name personally on it. And it's just been my practice. People hire me to be their lawyer. And I just kind of felt a little funny about it, but I am happy that I did it. Like as soon as I did it, I'm like, yeah, this was the right decision. It makes perfect sense.
Well, yeah, it took me forever to actually like get a manager because I felt like I wasn't on that level yet to have a manager with my bowling, because sometimes I lose track of my finances with how much I'm putting into these tournaments, how much I'm getting back in return, the proper orders. And then like now me having a manager now, it's like made my life so much easier. Like he will just call up and be like, hey, don't forget next Sunday, like I have my summer tour this Sunday. Hey, this Sunday, this is what's going down. And it's like it's just like such a big help now. Now I can just focus on my work. I can focus on taking care of things at home. And like you said, your overall health. And I've got to do a better job at that now. Definitely getting out there exercising more.
Yeah, for sure. And for myself, I think about if I want to be involved in these different areas, I don't want to just do law all the time. I still want to do some political things. I want to do this. I want to do some music stuff and maybe other types of business. So you do need a team. You can't do everything at once, be everything to everybody and not have people working with you. It just doesn't work. There's not enough hours in a day, days in a week. But I do want to talk more about your bowling endeavors. That's pretty exciting. So what's going on with that?
It's going well. This summer I kind of was off to a slow start. I just came off of winning the Mid-Maryland Championship out here in Maryland. As everybody knows right now, this is mostly the area of focus because I'm in the Mid-Atlantic division for PBA. So all the preliminaries are happening in Maryland, Virginia, and parts of Pennsylvania. So right now I have to be stationary here because it costs way too much money to stay in New York and do that kind of competition. So it went well. I won the championship, put myself on the map. I was able to beat some actual PBA bowlers at some pro-am. I'm trying my best here. I'm doing with a little bit of equipment. I don't have as much money as these other guys have, where they can go ahead and get a new bowling ball every week. They can travel, spend like travel expenses are outrageous. They can be spending anywhere to $2,000 to $5,000 a month just going all across this country to compete. Wow. So that's something I have to prepare for. That's something I'm going to have to realize that's what I'm going to be doing really soon, especially if I start winning some of these big events. So it's going well. I will say it's stressful. I did not know being any professional athlete. I can just imagine what these NBA and NFL guys go through where they're on a much larger scale than I am. And they just do all this traveling and they're making time for friends. I actually have not seen a lot of my friends in a year. Even after lockdown was lifted and I haven't been around so many people that I enjoy being around. It's tough sometimes. But I think it'll all pay out in the end.
Well, congratulations on that win. That's what's up. That's dope.
Yeah, thanks a lot. He was a four-time regional champion that I actually defeated. So, it was a big deal. It definitely got eyebrows up. I came from being a nobody to now I'm pretty much all around this region now. Everyone say, hey, what's up? Like now my name is known. Now my face is known. So I'm getting picked up now for all these competitions and teams. Everybody wants me to bowl for them for league season. It's chaos.
Sounds like a good type of chaos, though.
Yeah, it is. It is. But sometimes it's like, guys, I just want to do my own thing. You know, everybody's like, hey, I mean, every day I'm getting calls like, hey, we need you for a squad. Hey, we need you down here. Hey, you want to make a few extra bucks? Come down here. And it's like, easy, guys. Easy.
It sounds like winning a rap battle almost, and you're making a name for yourself.
Right. Yeah, the hustle is the same. I feel it's just, we're doing different types of professions here, but the hustle is still there. The hustle remains the same.
Wow. So you're on the PBA tour, or you're about to join the PBA tour?
I'm actually about to join the PBA tour. All I gotta do is win some of these preliminaries coming up, and then I have an official jersey because I am a member of the PBA. I have my own card and stuff, so I'm able to go ahead and compete with these bowlers. But now to compete on a tour event on TV is a whole nother process. That takes a whole lot of money, a whole lot of winning, and a lot of sponsors.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm curious because in golf, like if you win or lose, like it's like a tiered system. Like even you can lose and still get some of the prize money. So is that similar in bowling, or is this like winner take all?
Absolutely. It's similar to that. It depends on the type of tour. It depends on the type of tournament that you're in. Sometimes the top 10 guys can get paid out cash. Sometimes it's as low as the top 3, or even just winner takes all in some of these events. But most of the preliminaries, again, we're entering in with lots of money. So of course, there's lots of money to be on the table, left to be on the table to win. So yeah, I would say your average tournament, if you finish in the top 12, top 15, you're going to walk away with some cash. It may not be the same amount that you put in, but you're getting some type of return back to make it worth your time.
Okay. So on average, I say I bowl about a 120, 115, 120. Is there any future for me in the arena? Could I win some cash?
I'm the type of guy who says that, it's not about what you can do, it's about the time that you put in. And I feel like anybody can do this sport. I mean, it's probably one of the easiest sports to pick up. It's just more of like doing it. The more you do it, the more you'll get better at it. And you got to have the time, of course. Not everyone has the time I do to go ahead. I don't have a family or anything like that, so I can go ahead and go to as many bowling alleys as possible weekly and practice. But if league time, if you want to do some leagues, you can get in on that. They give you handicap pins, and I guess I can touch on that a little bit in a few on how that works. But you get handicap pins, so you coming in with that 120 average. If you bowl a 120, that's equivalent to like a 180, and you may actually help your team out a lot. So we do have levels to this, but PBA is strictly what we call scratch. So the best, the highest score, the highest series put together within 3 or 4 games will decide the winner.
So that was a very polite way of saying, no, your score is pretty trash. You don't have it. You don't have what it takes right now to make it.
No, well, that's why they have handicap pins. So handicap kind of levels out the competition. So again, me with the 199 average right now, let's say I bowl like
quick flex, I saw that.
So let's say I bowl like a 160, and trust me, I have done that before plenty of times on tour. I bowl a 160, you bowl a 140, you actually would beat me.
Oh, because the handicap.
Based off the handicap, you would beat me. So it's one of those sports where you can't always, like, I know sports betting is a big thing now, right? So you can't really always go for the negative odds. Like that guy can actually.
People really cheat though to make their handicap artificially lower to give themselves a better chance.
That's a controversial topic, but you know me, I don't shy away from those discussions. That's what we call dumping. A lot of people don't like to be accused of dumping per se, but you'll have a guy come in the first 3 weeks, because the first 3 weeks everybody's even. It's a 99 average. No one is established yet. First 3 weeks you go out there, you bowl, and that's going to make up your average. So a lot of people know that in the back of their head. So someone like me, who's known to bowl 200, and then you see me bowling 140 on the first 2 weeks, you're like, this is not a bad night. You're dumping. You're throwing the ball wacky on purpose. They make all these accusations, and then I come up and I have a 140 average. Now I'm bowling 220 every week, and I'm beating everybody every week. So, yeah, that happens a lot in league play. However,
It's like hustling at the pool table, right? You used to see that thing where they
yeah,
you
it's
walk
like,
in and missing all the shots on purpose, and all of a sudden I play you for money, and then they're the masters.
So
yeah, all of a sudden, yeah.
you're saying that if I come in and start bowling like a 50 for that first 2 weeks, and then come out with my 120, then I could be killing the game.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, you'd be killing. I mean, of course, your team still has to perform as well to whatever their averages are, but I mean, you're going to be going in. I mean, you have like separate pots too, so you could go into like what we call brackets, which is a single tournament during the week, and you can go and take some cash from other single bowlers, and you can walk out. There's so many ways to make money. You just gotta, like you said, you gotta flex. You gotta kind of.
Jay, you'll be killing the game, but they might end up killing you after for cheating.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
like like I said, my first time out here in the DMV, nobody knew who I was. I didn't know anybody either, and I bowled a 125 legitly. Like I legit could not figure out what was going on. I never bowled in this bowling alley before. I was a little nervous because I didn't know anybody. I didn't want to look like I sucked. So I bowled a 125, and they looked at me like, "Yeah, this guy sucks. We don't want him on our team." And then 2 weeks later, I'm figuring it out, and they're like, "No, we're gonna keep you now on the team, man. Wow, you really can bowl." I was like, I just had to get used to the lanes, and then I got accused of dumping. They was like, "Yeah, right, Mr. 125 over there. He comes in 2 weeks later, and now he's bowling 220." And it's like, all right, guys, that was a real 125.
Well, sometimes it's like that. I think with anything, any sports, any game, anything, like sometimes you can have an off night. Sometimes you can have a hot night. Like I might bowl on average like around a 120, but I think my best game ever was like around a 190, 199 or something. And it was just a hot day, and never got it again. But
But look, it's that one day. It's that one day. It's all it takes is that one day when you get that 199, and you're happy for the rest of the week. You took home the bake.
Also, if you do it the once, that shows you that it can be done. You have the ability to do it. Maybe not consistently, but you can work to that. Then it's
well, you see, when I did do that, it was a time where, and I guess it speaks to what Jeffrey was talking about as far as practice and putting in effort. It was a time where myself and two of my uncles, we were bowling several times a week in like this short time, and it was just us three would go there, and we were all starting to hit higher numbers, like 160s and this and that, and then so it was like putting in that time constantly, getting a feel for the lane, getting a feel for your bowling, and it was showing in that time. Since then, I haven't done that consistently, so now when I go and bowl, it's like about a 115, 120.
But that's with anything in life. People don't realize sometimes you see people, you think they're so talented at whatever it is that they do, but there's so many hours, so many reps they've got to put in to get to that point, to develop that talent, to become a master at what they do. Some people say it's a 10,000 hours, but whatever it is, it's just a lot of practice over the course of many years. And it kind of shows who's dedicated and who's not, because to get to the top of something, you need to put in that dedication and take it more seriously than someone who might have some talent, but isn't serious enough about it.
Right. I want to touch on that one more time before we move forward. And I don't know if you can see in my background, I have a trophy up there, and green is gold. That was my first trophy, and I was actually 6 years old. I came first place in the junior, small junior league. We used to bowl at Woodmere Lanes and right outside of Queens in Nassau County. So I did put a lot of years in before I got into this point, and I'm still not even the best in the world or anything like that. So this stuff takes time too, and I definitely go out there and tell everybody that, start everybody off when they're young. Like if you got any kids out there taking an interest in something, I don't care what sport it is, start them off young. They're only going to get better through time, and sometimes time is the greatest equalizer. Sometimes you don't even got to have the skill right away. You develop those over time.
Yeah, and speaking to Mike's point, it reminds me of a lyric from Edo G, which is an often quoted thing, not just his lyric, but he put it in a lyric saying that hard work beats talent when talent's not working hard.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Steph Curry, I remember seeing him some games only shoot for 10 points. I mean, he shot horribly, like 3 for 25 from the field. I mean, come on, that's Steph Curry. That's the greatest shooter of all time, arguably. And he'll have a bad night. So You're not going to be great all the time, so it evens out.
Absolutely. Well, that's what's up. Well, definitely, keep pushing on that. You get up there with the Jack Nicklaus's.
Let's go.
That's the only. Oh, dang. I thought I had a bowler in my head. I thought I had one.
Yeah, you probably heard of like Jason Belmonte or Pete Weber. I'm pretty sure you heard of those guys. They popped up on Sports Center every now and then.
Yeah, no.
Oh, the Edison quote I was trying to think of, at least it's attributed to Edison, with genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. I think it's the same idea.
Yeah.
Someone else used that in a rap lyric too.
Fort Minor had a similar quote. He's like 5% skill. I think
That's
it's
it.
like 90%.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it was Fort Minor. I believe they made
Yeah.
it. Was,
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
That was a Linkin Park rap group, wasn't it? Or the lead singer from Linkin Park did Fort Minor?
Yeah, he did Fort Minor before he decided to, stick to what he was great at.
Yeah, well, that's that's kind of a sore subject with Mike. So
you were involved in that too, Jay.
Yeah, for sure.
Come on, the collaboration with Jay-Z was awesome. Everybody loved that song. Everybody loved that album where you combined the two together.
Not everybody.
Two good ones on there. Encore. Numb Encore is good.
Huh?
Numb Encore is good.
Yeah, that was a great one.
I don't know. I thought the song that he did, Step Up, was pretty. That was kind of.
It's old school. Anyway, let's talk about congestion pricing, because
talk about
controversy. Here comes a sort of subject and a controversial subject for a lot of people. I had a post up on Facebook. Let's see, 79 shares. So 79 people shared my post. 128 reactions, 159 comments. Most people against it, at least in terms of the comments and the reactions that I'm receiving. If you don't know, the MTA put out this proposal that we hear is going into effect, although they're saying now that there's going to be public hearings and a comment period, approval needed from the federal government. Bottom line is we think this is coming, whether we like it or not. And they're talking about $23 flat rate on the Hugh Carey Tunnel, the Holland Tunnel, the Lincoln Tunnel, the Queensboro Bridge, the Queens Midtown Tunnel, the Williamsburg Bridge, the Manhattan Bridge, and the Brooklyn Bridge, the RFK Bridge, $6.55 each way. And then, of course, there's a congestion zone within Manhattan in the downtown, really everything south of Central Park, Manhattan, where you're going to be told just to drive within Manhattan. And I compared it to the Cross Bay Bridge, because we always said that there shouldn't be a toll to drive between Queens and Queens. It was the only intra-borough toll in the whole city, and it really stifled us in South Queens for such a long time. Now, instead of removing the toll entirely, they're adding more intra-borough tolls so that we can't even say it's the only one anymore, and a lot of people are not happy.
So you're saying it would cost $23 just to cross the bridge?
That's right.
Just to cross just use the tunnel every time?
Yep.
That's insanity. Where do they think people are gonna come up with this money? Where do they think that?
So there's this idea that driving is a luxury, and really nobody should be driving, according to this idea. People who are behind this say that in New York City, people should be using public transportation only, or riding their bicycles. You hear that a lot also. Some people don't even want to expand public transit. They just want people walking and riding bikes. And they say that if you drive, you have to pay a tax. Some people I saw in Manhattan were supporting this, saying it's a downward distribution of wealth. People who drive their cars should have to give money to the system, which will benefit people who ride the subway, who don't have as much money, according to this argument, as people in the cars. So it's a way to essentially punish drivers for driving in the city.
I think that's pretty insane. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, do they not know that majority of the people who do drive in the city happen to be middle class and live in the outer boroughs? I'm not sure why.
Right.
They would
That's a
use
very
that
good
as
point, because most people who believe in this kind of thing are either in Manhattan or they have that inner city type mentality. Maybe they live in Brooklyn, and maybe they're hipsters, or whatever, but they ride their bikes, they walk. they don't really understand what it's like to live in South Queens or Staten Island or some parts of the city where public transportation is not that developed and people can't ride their bicycles everywhere. I mean, I made this point also, if you're a senior, how are you going to ride a bike? Someone said that was ageist for me to say that. I'm being realistic. Most people who are older in age, as they get older, they have a harder and harder time even walking long distances. Now you can have them ride their bike in an area where it's not like Manhattan. The whole city is not like Manhattan or very developed where your doctor is going to be on the next corner maybe. We're talking many miles, long distances people are going to have to travel now. How are they going to do that without being able to be driven in some cases?
Right. It sounds to me like it's and I know some people might be upset, but it sounds like Manhattan elitism. You know, they think this is Manhattan, and it's a way to keep people from coming through the way, freely moving about in their areas, and this increase. I mean, because it's going to stop people from traveling into Manhattan in a certain way. And look, the MTA, has a big load that they carry every day, but that system, if you're trying to get everybody onto that system, it's just not gonna operate that well.
Right. And there are elected officials in certain parts of the city who say that now is not the time to expand the subway system. So we're pushing for the Queens Link or the Rockaway Beach Line. We're saying, hey, at least give us this. They're saying, no, people are afraid to take the subways now with crime up. It's not the time to invest in the subway. Instead, we should be doing open streets and making everyone ride a bike. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You're not going to expand mass transit. You're going to get rid of streets. You're going to charge everyone these crazy tolls. You're doing a speed camera thing now too, 24/7. All these taxes and tolls and penalties on drivers so that they won't drive anymore, but you also won't give us a better subway system, so everyone has to walk or ride their bike. I mean, it's very elitist to me.
Yeah, that doesn't make any kind of sense. Like, you can't take one away and then not improve the other, because the other one's gonna, the MTA, if this does go through, there will be an influx in riders on the MTA, which means already crowded lines and trains are going to be even more crowded. There's going to be longer waits, going to be more frustration. There's going to be more incidences on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit up my alley. Before I decided to take on my bowling career, I was big into transportation. I was a huge advocate for it. I even worked for a transportation company. I worked for NYC Ferry for 2 years, and I can tell you that when we implement craziness like this, it actually has a trickle-down effect. So I understand. I just want to put forward that I understand why we have congestion pricing, because the influx of traffic in downtown Manhattan is outrageous. I mean, it's like almost like to the point where our infrastructure can't handle that massive volume around rush hour. But I feel like there's other alternatives that we are just deciding not to visit that can correct that issue. And I just think that this is kind of like I don't even know how to explain it really. It's kind of like a double tax to me. I mean, I'm not trying to get super libertarian here, but it's almost like it's another tax burden. It's another fee that's being put onto a city that is already struggling with a housing crisis, a work shortage. I mean, other economic things that are affecting people. And I don't think a lot of people in New York City take for granted is that yes, we are one of the big mass transportation hubs in the entire country. However, I do think we take for granted that sometimes it's best to drive in New York because, like you said, the congestion I've been on both sides of the spectrum on this. Transportation sometimes isn't that reliable for every neighborhood in New York. I'm not just talking about where I come from in the Rockaways. I mean, you got Bayside, Queens. You got some people that live more north of Flushing, Whitestone area. They have to drive. I mean, to wait on a bus for an hour just to get to a subway, to get to work in the city, it's like, that's not logical. And
Right.
that is really affecting people. That's going to affect people in a lot of different ways. I don't care what economic class you're in. That's going to change a lot of things in the city going forward. I can't see how they can let this madness go. I don't see how that's possible.
Right. There's a certain ignorance there. And I think a lot of people either don't know what you just mentioned, that a lot of neighborhoods don't have that kind of access to public transit, or there are some people, quite honestly, who don't care and they kind of have contempt for people in these neighborhoods. And they say, listen, too bad. You guys are not real New Yorkers or whatever, even though probably they, in many cases, were living in New York more than the people who were for this. But that's kind of
Right.
how it is. It's like this class battle, or this, this one New York versus
Yeah.
another New York. And it really shouldn't be us versus them. We should be, I think,
Right.
sensitive to everyone's situation and say, yeah, if you live in a certain neighborhood, then your public transit isn't developed to the point where you can just rely on that, or you're not going to just ride a bike to the grocery store or to the doctor. It is more spread out. And all these things have to be taken into consideration. You can't have this one size fits all approach. And you also should use, I think, a carrot and not a stick. If you want fewer cars on the road, you want more people taking public transit, then give us a better public transit system instead of punishing people for driving and not really giving them another alternative. You're just imposing more of a tax on people.
Absolutely. It shouldn't be punitive. It should be something where it's like you said, there should be more options open up. You want to encourage people to bike and ride, to walk and take the subway, make it easier for them to do that. I mean, it's that simple, just make it much more easy.
I think also too is it's going to have to be a sense of communities all across New York City that's going to have to galvanize together on this, because usually whoever's the loudest in New York City usually gets the food. So the communities who are less quiet about this, where they know it affects, this is not a lower Manhattan issue. I mean, the center of our city is in Manhattan, and majority of the workforce goes to Manhattan. The credit, you have downtown Brooklyn that's been massively developed for jobs and things like that. But still, most of those jobs that people hold in the city are in Manhattan. And like he said, updating transportation systems is key, but I also think that we need to fix a lot of the infrastructure. The roads and the bridges need to be done. I mean, where's this money? Like, okay, justify the cost first, then we can entertain the whole example. Where's this money going to be allocated towards? Is this going to help our transportation system? Is this going to improve the tunnels? Is this going to improve the bridges? Is this going to is this going to create jobs? Because then maybe I might want to just deal with the $23 toll if that's the case, because those are the things that me speaking for myself are for, creating jobs.
Listen, if you tell me you're going to take that money and use it to build the Rockaway beach line, I'll drive over the bridge 10 times a day.
Yeah.
Let's get that fun going.
Perfect example. You gotta make improvements to the A train. You gotta make improvements to the N, the W, and the R train. They have issues too. The F train. I mean, all these train systems. Where's this money gonna go? They're not really too clear on that. But I want to bring up something that you guys may have overlooked. Remember when they wanted to shut down the L train for about 18 months to do repairs to a tunnel? You see how quickly that community was such against what was going on. Not to get too political on here, but you just see how fast the chain of ladder that they climbed. Like, I mean, Andrew Cuomo got involved and said, hey, we're not going to do this. We're going to find another alternative. They were so quick to find another alternative. First, they were going to use ferries. Scrap that idea. Then they said, okay, we're going to just bus everybody for free across. Scrap that idea. Oh, you know what? We could do all the work without shutting down the line. They knew that already. They knew they could do that without going to the worst case scenario. They just wanted to see how the community was going to react to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What they could get away with.
Eric Schleier says $23 for the Queensboro Bridge. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, that's unrealistic. That's completely unrealistic. Think about people, especially people going into work every day, right? That's $23 a day, 230. What?
Right.
What 10 times, not 10 times, they're going in 5 times a week. So, you're going 20 times and you multiply that by $23. It's an insane number and extra expense.
DJ Primetime made that point. He said he has to travel to Manhattan for work. And he said they're just adding another expense onto my job. I mean, it's not like I have a choice. I have to drive into Manhattan every once in a while for work, and they're making my job more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost another part-time job's worth of money that you're paying out.
Thomas Peter Gonzalez says, in what world is crazy toll pricing progressive? That's actually conservative cronyism for the MTA. And yeah, it has been sold as this progressive idea, mostly because they say it's this idea of a downward distribution of wealth, that drivers should be punished for having the luxury of driving and the money should go to the MTA. They look at that as progressive. I don't think it is. I think it's another example of being regressive, especially when you start looking at the people who are suffering. I mean, you're disproportionately harming seniors. How is that progressive?
Right.
Not only that, it's just also you're kind of still helping that big corporate landscape. It's not like Amazon can't afford to drive their trucks into Manhattan for $23 both ways. I'm trying to understand their logic here. That's not affecting Target. That's not affecting all these major corporations. That's going to hurt the middle class. No matter what policies, when it comes to adding fees or taxes or any type of, like, I don't know, these speed cameras too is a big thing. It ends up hurting the people who are actually contributing to the city the most, and you're hurting the tax base. This is nuts to me. I don't know how they can let something like this go. We had something similar here in Montgomery County, where they wanted to introduce a $50 toll on rush hours on I-270. And Mike, I know you're familiar with the area a lot. I-270 is a major corridor into the Beltway for the DMV area, the DC area. They proposed a $50 toll to go down I-270, and then they fell flat on their faces. I mean, these people were like, we're going to take you guys out of office. County executives, governor, everybody were putting your feet to the wall. You can't let this happen, because that's the only way to get from one part of Maryland to the other side of DC. And you're going to just leave people with no choice to pay $50 a day on rush hours?
And that's one way, right?
Yeah, that's one way. Well, they said they were only going to do it one way. It was for the get into the district. So yeah, $50 to go into the district. But guess what? That's where most people go to work at. A lot of us work in the district.
That's insane.
Yeah. Speaking of Montgomery, I actually stayed in Silver Spring for about 6 to 8 weeks. I'm very familiar with that area. I go down there a lot, and I know some of the politicians even in the area. In fact, Jay, we should probably hook him up with iDog, who does a lot of media in the area. Maybe want to speak to him. Isaac knows a lot of people in the political landscape there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Al Budnick says more roads for cars does not equal less traffic. Even Robert Moses would admit it's good to have bike paths so that the healthy stay that way and grandma has less traffic to deal with. So he's actually a proponent of congestion pricing.
Yeah, I have to disagree completely. There's no $23 is an insane amount.
I mean, how much is the
It's not even like here, that's a $2 fee or something. Let's go $23. Let's,
Well, the Holland Tunnel is what, $13 now to go into the city? I know it's free to leave the city, but I believe it's $13 now just to come into the city on a regular day, right?
And they want to make it 23.
23, so that's a $10 increase on the tunnel. You have 4 major bridges along the East River that was free for God knows how long. I mean, way before I was born and anybody here on this podcast was born. And now you $23 for Queensboro Bridge. This is insane. What about the Brooklyn Bridge? I'm sure they put a fee on that too.
Same thing, 23.
Yeah. Did you realize something on that map? It's free to go across the George Washington Bridge.
I just looked at that. So it looks like it's free to go into New Jersey, but $13.75 to come in.
Yeah, free to go. Okay, how is this progressive again? I mean, this is going to benefit people living in New Jersey more than people that live in New York City. I'll take the extra half hour up to Harlem. I'll take the extra half hour for free.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. But is this something that's going to go into effect?
So from what we're hearing, yes, it's inevitable. There still is a process that has to happen. Right now, there's a public comment period, and the MTA is inviting people to come out and give their thoughts. They don't care what our thoughts are, let's be honest. They're going to push this through.
Is this up to Albany, or is this up to both governments? Or is this something that's...
No, this needs approval by the federal government, actually.
Wow, they have jurisdiction over that? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be the negative Nancy here, but yeah, good job. Good job, feds. We're not going to beat the feds. It's not going to beat them. This is more than likely going to happen. They'll probably make some tweaks. Like, I don't think that GWB for free is going to hold. No way. They're going to keep that bridge free. No way.
No, because then a lot of people would redirect that way, and then you're going to get congestion on that bridge.
You're going to get congestion up in Washington Heights, and that's probably the worst place you want congestion, with all those hills and all those skinny streets up there. Oh man, I don't think this is thought through.
Looking at the other side, I mean, traffic in Manhattan and getting into Manhattan is pretty crazy. I know there'd be times when you and I, Mike, would go into the city for something, and it would just, it would seem to take like 2 hours just coming from Valley Stream to get into Manhattan. It was just, ridiculous. But, there's got to be just, better driving pathways or more options to make it easier for people to take mass transit or to walk or, to bike or whatnot. That's,
Eric Torres in the chat says the streets of New York City need to pass annual inspection if our cars need to, as well, dealing potholes, damaging cars daily. So you want to have an inspection of the streets.
Let's put a couple of dollars together. Let's find some vacant land that's on this side of the bridge, and put up a parking lot so people can drive in, park there, and then hop on the train and go across.
Like, yeah, you're talking about parking rides. That's a big deal over here where I'm at. Parking rides are actually a phenomenal idea. They actually have been proven to work. I mean, there's statistics that show that people will actually, if you build parking, you make it free during rush hours, they will more than likely take the bus or the train to work. Because that's really the only reason why people drive into the city still, is because, well, you know what, it's like, it's not cost effective, right? I'm going to pay all this money on Long Island Railroad, like you said, to come from Valley Stream over to work in the city. Well, if I drive, it's still costing me. Like, I mean, with gas, that's going to be about $40 a week. I got to put in my tank. I could just park my car and get on Long Island Railroad, save a lot of money. But I guess that's too logical. I guess every empty space we have in New York, we just have to build some high-rise buildings for the rich to flex on us more about.
Yeah.
Shamika Narain says the city and state don't know what the hell they want to do. Something they're supposed to progress better, they're only making it worse. A lot of people complaining about the $23 flat fees. Yeah, that's crazy. There's East River Crossing is free.
I think what people should do is while the MTA is taking these, of course, we probably, cynically think that they don't care, and they probably don't, but that those complaints should be directed at the MTA and media. Get that into the media as well. Like, just look, this is not anything that's going to benefit the average person in New York. It's punitive in that regard.
Well, if anyone wants to speak, the MTA is asking people to come forward to speak on it. Let's see, there's going to be hearings, actually several hearings. This Thursday, the 25th, Saturday, the 27th, Sunday, the 28th, Monday, the 29th, Tuesday, the 30th, and Wednesday, the 31st. So you can sign up to speak at any of these hearings.
Yeah, well, I wonder
they're virtual hearings too, so you can do it online.
I wonder how these companies. Oh, I'm sorry, Jay.
No, go ahead.
I'm wondering how these companies are taking this news, because this may affect people coming back to work in the offices. I know that was a big deal going on in New York. I was hearing about them trying to get everyone back in the city to work. I know Mayor Adams has been pushing for all of this, but how does this benefit tourism, and how does this benefit people from going back into the city? And this may actually hurt a lot of businesses. I wonder if anybody ever used that angle, that small businesses can be affected by this tremendously, and even so corporations not being able to get people employed into their offices, that might actually move the jobs out of Manhattan, and they may go over to our cousins in New Jersey. I mean, that's just a thought, or they'll go to another borough. I mean, that's just nuts. I mean, there's a lot of factors in that I think a lot of people are missing here.
A lot of people on my post said it was time to leave New York City, and basically just that. Go to New Jersey and move south. I think it is going to drive a lot of people out. I actually put the link in the chat, so if anyone wants to sign up, it's under this video. They can click on that link. And what it is it's mandatory that when they do an environmental impact statement, that there's a public comment period. So it's just part of the process. It's not the MTA just being kind and wanting to hear people's thoughts. It's part of the law that they have to do this. But we see time and time again with these projects, they do it just to say that they did it. They don't really take people's concerns into consideration.
Right. It's insanity. They're pricing people out of New York City
in every way you could imagine.
I want to ask about this question about ageism, because apparently it's ageist to call out ageism or to say that this is going to affect older people. I want to ask people this, because my thing was, in most parts, or maybe even not even most, but in many parts of the city, it's going to be prohibitively difficult for older people to get to their appointments if they have to ride a bike or walk. I mean, I don't think that should be a controversial thing to say, but some people, I guess, were offended by that. But I want to ask people, maybe this could be our poll question for the week. Does your grandmother personally ride her bicycle to her doctor's appointment? I want to get a sense of this. Because I'll tell you this, I'm almost 40 years old. I've been in several doctor's offices in my life. I've not once seen someone walk in who was a senior citizen wearing a bike helmet. I just haven't seen that.
Listen, I agree with you. I will say though, out here in Japan, senior citizens are biking like crazy. I sent you a couple of pictures of like some old people on bikes. It's I think in the States, elderly people in the States don't move as much. And I think it's not just elderly, but that's just people in general. In New York, if you're living in New York or in New York City, you're doing a lot of walking. But
Jay, it depends on where you live, even in New York City. That's the problem.
Right.
South Queens, for example, on the Rockaways. How you can tell people, and again, I don't know why this is ageist or controversial, but elderly people, you're going to tell them that they've got to ride a bicycle to Manhattan to see a specialist? I mean, come on.
Right.
Yeah, that's not ageist. Yeah, it's not ageist. It's foolishness to say it's ageist, because then it presupposes that, okay, you're saying this because you don't think elderly people can do this, so it's ageist. That's ridiculous. I mean, there are some realities that a lot of elderly people have mobility issues, and it's not ageist to recognize that.
Right. So, and the older you get, the more mobility issues you're going to have. So if you're fortunate enough to live into your hundreds, God bless you. But we're going to expect someone who's 105 to ride their bicycle to the doctor? I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah.
How would that affect Accessoride? I know they have like Accessoride's a big deal out there for a lot of elderly and disabled.
That's a great point, Jeff, because what I saw in a certain area of the city where I was surveying what they did with open streets, the Accessoride wasn't even able to get to the buildings because they closed off the streets, and they put these big potted plants in the way where you couldn't even move them if you wanted to. Even the fire trucks. I talked to the fire department. They said it takes several firefighters to get out the truck and move these plants, which weigh a couple tons, I guess, out the way. And then they got the barricades. So it's like an obstacle course just to try to get down the street. And then what you would see is delivery trucks. You would have Amazon trucks or UPS trucks kind of get as close as they could to the intersection and then get out with their package and walk. So now you got trucks blocking the path as well. There's no way emergency vehicles can get through. There's no way even Accessoride can get through. So seniors really can't get around. And I had this conversation with someone on my post who was saying, well, they can walk to the nearest side street and then take a cab from there. A lot of elderly people cannot walk that far. I don't know why people don't understand that. People in walkers, you can have them walk a few blocks to try to get to Accessoride.
And then you wanna add an expense for them to take, now they got to add a cab fare on top of everything. Like that seems, again, it's excluding people,
Yeah, there's nothing progressive about leaving people out of a certain bracket of living. I mean, I think everyone has a right to live the life they want to live, and just because someone is older or someone's younger doesn't mean that they have to adjust to everything in life. I get it. We do as human beings have to adjust as times change and as behaviors change, but there are a lot of cases, and it's more than what people think. There's a lot of people out there that can't adjust to these things. And I still think we need to make room for those people as well and make accommodations for those as well. I mean, it's just nonsense if you're going to ask my grandma to walk an extra 2 blocks just because you're afraid of getting hit by a car. I mean, that's nonsense.
We should be improving access, not restricting access.
Right, for everybody. And I agree. I mean, there are people who want to ride their bikes long distances. That's great. It's healthy. There should be bike lanes where it's safe and appropriate to have them and everything, but it should be a city that works for everyone and doesn't try to pit certain types of people against others. And that's what we're doing now. It's like I said, it's us versus them. And unfortunately, a lot of people who support this kind of stuff just have contempt for people who don't get around the same way they do. They don't like people who take cars, and that's a problem. And I think people just need to spend more time in other areas. Like, get out your bubble, see how other parts of the city are living, see how other people are living who aren't just like you. Not everyone is just like you. And that goes both ways. I mean, people in South Queens can see how you have a pedestrian culture in other parts of the city, or a bike culture, or mass transit culture. It's not the same everywhere, though, and we need to be cognizant of that reality.
Right. And again, if you want people to take bikes, you want people to walk, then you got to provide those avenues. Don't take away something and make it only that, because then people who can't do that are restricted. Add some bike lanes, add some sidewalks. Then you have something that's options for everybody. You got a bike possibility, you got walking possibility, you got driving possibility, and then some people will do that.
Yeah, I just think this is like people need to, like you said, get out of their bubble, travel more. I was also been doing a lot of research, and I'm getting ready to travel to Toronto. Toronto, Canada is not that much different from New York City, and they're finding ways to make things possible for everyone. I mean, mass transit is getting expanded. They're adding more bike lanes to areas where bikes are suitable, parks, major shopping hubs, things like that. And they're not removing access for anyone. They're not doing congestion pricing. They're not doing none of these things to improve the overall lifespan of people getting to work and just getting to doing their daily needs, like going to the pharmacy and shopping at the supermarket. I mean, those who want to ride a bike can ride a bike freely. Those who want to take transportation can go ahead and freely do that. Those who choose to drive, well, they've made it possible in that city, and they're still improving for those who want to drive still. And I mean, I don't know why anybody would really still want to drive, really, when you have great transportation and a great network of bikes. How about we improve those things and maybe people won't drive? I mean, I don't want to drive. I don't think many Americans want to drive anymore because it's tiring for one. It's costly to repair these vehicles. It's costly to put the pump now. I love that I can park somewhere now where I live at. I can park and I can get on a train and go to work and come back home. It's like, it's common sense to me, at least. I don't get it.
I think that the DC metro system is better than New York's. That might be controversial to say. Everyone says New York has the greatest mass transit system in the world. We're behind in so many ways. We're really behind. I mean, and I talk about the Rockaway Beach line a lot because it's an issue that I work on, and we don't have that north-south connectivity. We don't have that airport connectivity. I mean, in DC, the system to me was much more efficient. There were things I didn't like about it also, but they had Wi-Fi on there years ago. I mean, they were just they're ahead of the curve compared to New York.
Oh yeah, listen, Tokyo has a way better. Japan has a way better mass transit system than New York. That's not even a question. I mentioned before, like even local trains, you can take local trains only and reach one end of the country from the other in with transfers and stuff. Like that's how connected the system is. And then you go into Tokyo Metro itself, you've got the trains and you've got the subways, and it's just much better. It's much more efficient. Trains show up on the dot. It's much cleaner in the subways and in the train systems. It's hands down much better than New York system.
James in the chat says, my grandparents passed away, but I've never seen either of them ride a bike. So it'll be interesting to see also where people are from in the city and who's riding a bike. You know, I'm curious about that. Do elderly people tend to ride their bikes to the doctor anywhere in the city?
I don't see it in the States. I didn't see it in the States. Just not even to the doctor, just in period. You know, there's not. Now,
I'm not being facetious about this, Jay and Jeffrey. Someone actually said this to someone in the Rockaways at a civic meeting when they were trying to do some of these things. Someone raised his hand and said, my mother is in her 90s. I have to drive her to the doctor. And without a hint of irony, the response was, she should ride her bike.
That's
wow.
ridiculous.
That's very insensitive.
My grandmother's in her 90s. She can't ride a bike. So
my mom's in her 70s and she can't ride a bike anymore. So that's saying
right.
a lot. I mean,
no, I think it's an ignorant thing to say. Really, it is elitist and arrogant.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So
that's just people wanting what they want at the end of the day, and they don't care. They just want to have it their way.
Yeah,
I agree. So speaking of what people want, it seems like, according to my poll result, at least, you might have had a different experience. The people are pretty unified in wanting to end cannabis prisoners in the US. They're saying if we're moving towards legalization, why should people still be locked up for nonviolent marijuana offenses? 100% on my poll.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100% too. I mean, I think people that are in prison right now for things that happened before it was made legal, they should be let out as well if they were nonviolent marijuana offenses. And we shouldn't be locking people up there. Now, I think on the poll, when I had posted it, I had someone clarify because they were saying, yeah, they should be. And their clarification was for more the idea of people moving weight, maybe not just simple possession, but someone that's trying to distribute large quantities. That yeah, that should be, because then you're supposed to have a distribution card and a distribution license, and you're supposed to do it this way. If they're not, then yes, that they should be.
But should that be a criminal penalty or should that be a civil penalty?
Well, they were saying they should be locked up, so,
I'm not sure I agree with that, though I do understand that perspective, especially when you start looking at criminal enterprises, right? So if you're pushing that much weight, maybe you're funding some gangs. And that was kind of the issue that we had last week when we talked about that particular case.
right.
You can see that concern, but at the same time, if we're saying that marijuana now is not something that's criminal, why
Right.
have anyone locked up over it? I mean, if we're gonna treat it like alcohol, do we lock people away for bootlegging too much alcohol? I mean, I don't really hear about that kind of thing. I
I
guess
don't
it's
think we
possible.
hear about it. I don't think we hear about it, but isn't in some places making moonshining still illegal?
I'm just talking about in places where alcohol is legal, which is most places. If you're over 21, you can drink and you can buy alcohol and all that kind of thing. If we're going to treat marijuana the same way, why are we still locking people up for marijuana when we're not doing so for people who have alcohol related offenses? I mean, obviously, if you're driving under the influence, that's one thing. I'm just talking about selling too much alcohol. I guess you need licenses, maybe without you can get locked up still for it. It doesn't seem like that's really a thing that's happening though.
Yeah, I think the only thing in that regard is if you sell it to a minor, then there's something there. But in general, I don't think. I think the problem is we're still in a gray space where not just the law, but mentality wise on what marijuana is. Is this still this illegal gateway demon drug, or is it just something like alcohol that is benign in many regards? Like, I think we're still in that gray space, because a lot of people still think of marijuana and they have that old school way of thinking for 70, 80 years, where it's like, this is this vile drug that people are taking, whereas some people are like, it's just like this natural thing that you puff on or whatever.
Yeah,
So some people can't get around that.
right. I think I'm in the generation where it's widely accepted. However, I still feel like there is a lack of education on it as well. As you can see in many curriculums, they're pushing like all these other things, like same-sex marriage and stuff like that. They're educating all these kids on these things, but I also think where the school system's falling short on now is educating them on the drug use more. I think we've kind of shied away from that. I know that was a big thing in the 90s and early 2000s, but now today it kind of seems like, well, since marijuana is on its way from being legal, we don't need to talk about it no more. It's going to be okay. When the kids turn 18, they'll understand what it is, and that's like a horrible way to go about it. And then you have that older generation where they remember this evil thing because it was so widely spread amongst their communities. So many people in these communities were criminalized for it. They're kind of like, we don't want to. I've had some older generation tell me the reason why they don't want legal marijuana is not because they're against marijuana, it's just that they feel like it's a trap. I've heard crazy things like that, like, hey, this is a trap, this is another way of them implementing the war on drugs, and things like, this is a setup. Oh, well, it's not like many people of color or many minority groups are going to get these licenses to even benefit from these things.
Right.
Like,
And that's a good point also. I think that's also why you have so many people against locking people up, because it's disproportionately affected. So all the studies show that white people and black people use marijuana at the same frequency, but black people and people of color have been targeted and prosecuted for it at a much higher rate. So the system seems inherently unfair. And I think a lot of people are saying, okay, it's legal now. Let's end this misguided war on drugs and let people out who were done wrong by the system.
And the thing, and just even the war on drugs itself was very racially motivated. Like Nixon's, one of Nixon's cabinet, or not cabinet, one of Nixon's staff came out and said, we specifically did this to target minority communities, blacks specifically, and minority communities. So,
and then if you lock them up, they can't vote and they can win the race.
Yeah, it was a political strategy back then, for sure. And it also keyed into the whole redlining thing that was going on during his administration as well, even before his administration, where it was another tactic to try and put a gray area into one red area where they would say, well, this particular area where there's mostly minorities, there's going to be drugs, and where there's drugs, there's going to be crime. And that was what they went off of, that fear for so long. And I do understand when people say it's time to let everyone out of jail for these things, but I'm still on edge about it in a lot of ways, because now it's one thing letting people out of prison for all these years, because yes, agreed. I'm agreeing on the part that they are innocent now. Now that this is legal, let them out. But there needs to be some type of program, some type of initiative first to get these guys to be able to now function in this new society, because they've been locked up for this long. I mean, it's not just let them out and forgive them. What are we going to do for them now that they're
Right.
out?
I think nonviolent offenders is where they should take that step.
Right.
Nonviolent marijuana possession or whatever it was. Yeah.
So I just looked it up. Manufacturing or selling alcohol without the proper license is a misdemeanor in New York, carrying up to 1 year in jail. So if it's a misdemeanor to sell alcohol without a license, maybe we should treat marijuana the same way at this point. If you're selling it without the proper authority, to call it a misdemeanor, but don't make it a felony and keep people locked up for a long time.
Right. Yeah, we gotta stop trying to just lock people up for any and everything.
I wouldn't agree with that part either, because 1 year in jail is pretty excessive now, even to just sell some nutcrackers on the boardwalk, and you're gonna face a year in jail for that.
Well, it's up to a year, because that's how a misdemeanor is
I'm
defined.
sure they'll get a summons or something like that.
Like a year and a day and up is a felony, up to a year is a misdemeanor. So they're saying it's up to a year. Most people are not going to get a full year, especially if you have no priors and that kind of thing. But I agree with you, there is a danger there that someone could end up in jail for a year over something that's really.
Yeah, I mean, because we can't. Well, the reason why is that we got to be very careful with the language we use when we say, hey, treat it like alcohol. It's like, okay, you do have people out there who are distributing high amounts of volume of alcohol, and they're going right back to prison. So you don't want these people to be released after 20 plus years in jail, and now we're just going to throw them back in there for some minor infraction again. That's where I kind of was like, all right, the penalty needs to be a little bit less now. Maybe this should be a summons for first time offense, second time.
Even if you're pushing serious weight, though?
Oh, well, if you're pushing serious weight now, of course, that'll be the same as, someone out there running the illegally alcohol thing or whatever, selling illegal alcohol like moonshine or something. Like, now you're gonna have to face some time. But I think a lot of that will kind of, as the years go forward, it's not gonna be that profitable anymore to even be pushing that weight. I mean, we're seeing it now. There's so much marijuana out there now. There's so much access to it in these states that it's legal in now. I mean, I don't see where exactly the pusher is gonna make that much money off this stuff. They're gonna end up pushing something else.
What's funny, Jay? You mentioned rap lyrics before. Do you remember the last episode of Yo MTV Raps when they had that freestyle with all the artists? Yeah, MC Church began his freestyle with a line saying something like, and we're talking about, when is this, like early 90s? Was it like 92 or something like that? When was the last episode of Yo MTV Raps? Way later.
Yeah.
Right, long time ago. 30 years ago? He started his verse with the line, he went something like, I hear kids saying they want weed to be legalized. Why are you giving money to the government we're making on the side?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think a lot of people had that argument back then, that the reason why weed was illegal was because the government didn't know how to capitalize off it. And as we can see now, that's far from the truth now. I mean, look at all these states like Colorado and Washington who have benefited from legalization of marijuana. I mean, we're talking billions of tax revenue in there. So, yeah, I get his argument, but at the same time, it's like, I think a lot of people need to focus on why people were selling weed during that time. People were selling weed because of economical factors. A lot of these people who were selling these things could not have access to jobs because of whatever upbringing they may have had that was unfortunate. I mean, we're talking about abuse. There's so many factors on what makes someone go out there and push weight. So I think there's economical factors that people have to acknowledge when it came to these offenses.
Sure. 95, by the way, last episode of Yo MTV Raps. So
95. I figured it was around that time.
Yeah.
95. Okay. That's what's up.
So in the last couple minutes here, I wanted to talk about the student loan activity that we saw, because on a prior episode a while ago, we had talked about the topic and what was going to happen with it. We didn't know what kind of relief was coming. So now we have some clarity on that point, right?
Well, it's something a little bit. Biden is getting close to is likely to announce that he's going to forgive up to $10,000 for some borrowers, and is going to further extend the current freeze on loan payment that came out during the pandemic. So I think it's 10,000 for people making 125K or less annually, is one of the proposals. And they're expecting that the freeze on loan repayment will extend to the end of the year, because now it's supposed to cancel August 30th. So that's, another 6 days, people are going to start, paying them things back. But expecting it's going to extend to the end of the year.
You see, they're just stringing us along, I think, because there's so much political pressure to cancel student debt, and it's like they don't have the courage to go that far. So they're saying, we're just going to give you a few more months of relief. And let's be honest, the midterm elections are coming up. I think it's a way to make it look like they're doing something on that, even though they're really just kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, I think that's part of what it is. And it's, again, like you said, people are going to be, in another few months, they're going to be like, hey, well, what happens in December? We're still not 100%. To back to the levels of pre-pandemic. So, what about then? We're having a job crunch. We're having a recession right now. Like, what about then? And 10,000, I'm sure a lot of people are gonna welcome a $10,000 drop. I think ultimately, though, my whole issue with the student loan thing, and I have no problem with people getting student loan forgiveness or reduction, and I've paid off my student loans, so I don't have any problem with others getting that relief. I think, though, going forward, there needs to be a better plan, right? You can't just say we're going to take out loans and everyone's going to get forgiven forever, because then at that point, this is just make college free. And if we can do that, that would be amazing as well. I think that would be great for the country. But in lieu of that, with the loan system, I think what needs to happen is what's really killing people is the interest on it, the interest payments. A lot of times people end up paying way more, double, what they took out on loans, because interest keep on accruing. And when you do pay, it goes to the interest, never bringing down the principal. And so you're still accruing more and more interest. I think there should be a cap. Like if you got a 6% interest on your loan, you should never pay more than 6% of that loan. So then it doesn't, people aren't carrying this debt, for 40, 50 years. Like, okay, you take $10,000 loan, you got 6% interest on that. You should never pay more than that. So to me, that's a longer term solution than this short term.
And you need that. You need reforms. You need to say, okay, if you're going to forgive debt and start all over, then what? What does the system look like going forward? Are we saying no more student loans? Are we saying only better terms? Like you said, maybe no interest or better interest rates or a better deal. I want to see them honor public service forgiveness, which they stopped. I think they're starting to again now. I want to see plans in place that don't cripple a generation and future generations of people, because that's what we've had. We've had people now, based on the system, not being able to ever buy houses. That's a problem, and that's going to have devastating long-term effects on our economy. So something needs to be done about this. I do think it's a good thing that the relief is being extended, but I just don't think it's enough. I think it's a Band-Aid solution. We need something more sustainable.
Right, and if you wipe out all student loans right now, millions of people be ecstatic. But what about the kids that are getting ready to graduate high school and about to go to college? Like, are we doing it again? Are we going to wait? If the system is still there, they're going to be.
What about the people who just paid off their loans? That's like, I'm in kind of that boat myself. I'm looking at this like, I've got student loan debt, but with all this talk about forgiveness and the different things that are happening, do I want to pay it all off now, only to find out tomorrow or next week it would have been forgiven, and then I wouldn't be able to get that money back? I think a lot of people are in that boat too, where it's almost, you don't have an incentive to pay off your loans right now because you don't know what's going to happen, if they're going to be forgiven or what.
Right. Yeah, and no, go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, and I think too, like you said, the long-term solution, Jay, is that, well, all right, we forgive everybody, we forgive all these loans. I say it's time to now implement a solution to why everyone was in these loans in the first place. I mean, the outrageous cost of going to school. The millennial in me will say, well, time to invest in education, but also don't mislead these people to thinking that if they go ahead and they take out all these loans, and they get this degree that this is going to guarantee them a proper place. And I think this is why we had student loans in the beginning, was because the theory was you're taking out this debt because later on you're going to be able to afford to take on this debt, and you're going to be in a position in life where this debt is not even going to hurt you in the long run. You're going to pay this off 4 to 5 years after you're graduated, because that's the time frame you will have to get a good job. And I think it doesn't matter if we clear everyone's debt today, because we will be right back in the same place in the next 10 years. So the solution here to me is it's just make college free. And I think there's ways now we can make college free. It's just going to take someone with a lot of balls to say, well, hey, this is what we're going to be funding. This is what we're going to be using these funds for. We're going to reallocate this to the education budget. I feel guilty myself because talking about this, because I'm someone who doesn't have student loan debt. I'm a big supporter of CUNY schools. We have a great system in New York where you go to school and you essentially, someone in a low economic class like I was, still am to this day, I would consider myself in a low income bracket. We go to school for essentially nothing. I mean, I didn't come out of pocket for anything in school, and I'm very fortunate of that. And it actually made my life a lot better already at this young age to experience these things that other people won't be able to do because of all that debt.
Yeah, I think that's another thing too, that you know, while they're debating this whole student loan thing, what students and college goers can do is to look at alternative ways to get through, so they're not taking on that debt. Like, you can get in first out of college, go to a community college, where most community colleges are extremely affordable, and you're talking 2 years there, and then you only have to do 2 years at a university. Well, once you go to 2 years at university, if you do a state school rather than a private school, you're getting an even more affordable tuition, which in some cases it can still be crazy, but it's going to be more affordable than a private school. So there are ways to kind of lessen it, and you know. But again, I would agree, if we could find a way to make it free, or make it, you know, to drop those levels, you know, crazy, so people can go wherever and get that education. I think it's a very valuable thing, because ultimately a less educated population could be seen as a national security issue. You know, you're going to have brain drain. You're going to have, you know, less innovation. It's very important for the country to have an educated population.
Right. And I'll make this point also. We're critical of the president nowadays, but when he was the vice president, he actually called my office, or his staff did, called my office in Albany to talk about pushing a bill to make college free. We would start with free community college, called the New York Promise Program. And I actually worked very closely with the White House at the time and his staff. And he himself got on a call with us at one point to give ideas as to how we might want to get it done. They talked about how in some other states, like in Tennessee, they had a wealthy Michael Bloomberg type guy who put money behind the program, you know, how we can fund a program like this to make sure that people can afford or really can get to school for free, and you know, they won't have crippling student loan debt. So it is something that I know he's been interested in for a while, and I got the pleasure of working with him directly on that in Albany. But we need to see more of it now at the national level. I think as a country, we're pining for something more sustainable and serious and long-term on this issue, not just the step-by-step Band-Aid solution.
Absolutely. I think we run to that point where we might need to extend the final word, the bottom line. So
yeah, so before we do that, Jay, tell us where they can find the show.
Oh, yes. Nuance with Mike Scala and Jay Carter. You can find it on YouTube. Search for that. We have the channel there. Please go there and subscribe, like, and share the videos, comment on everything. Also, you can hit us up in podcast form anywhere you do podcasts, which would be Spotify, Amazon, Apple, all those places. We're out there. Subscribe to those things. Join us and comment with us. So,
all right. So on that note, we like to give our guests the last word. So Jeffrey Williams-Maisonet, what is the bottom line?
Bottom line is, I just want to leave off with something positive for everyone. I know things are tough out here for a lot of people right now, and I just want to tell everyone to keep a straight head. Things will get better. Try to stay as productive as possible. Take care of whatever has to be taken care of, and worry about whatever needs to be taken care of when you get to it. And again, Mike, Jay, appreciate all you guys for giving me a voice here. I really appreciate it. I'll keep you guys updated offline about how everything's going with the bowling. And just a message out there to all the youth: keep fighting for everything that you want in life, because you never know. I'm out here fighting for it. It's hard, but we're going to get through it.
Well said. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for everyone tuning in and checking us out. We'll catch you all next week.